Welcome. Today, we are bringing you an explainer of the Sunny Side Up newsletter, weeks 26 and 27 by Willem Scheepers. You know, if you've been tracking AI lately, you've probably felt it. The conversation has totally shifted. We are way past being amazed by a chatbot writing a funny poem. We've hit a tipping point. AI isn't just a handy tool anymore, it's literally becoming the foundational layer of our organizations. It's touching absolutely everything: how we work, how we learn, even how we govern our companies. So let's break down Scheepers' insights and figure out what this massive shift actually means for all of us.
Okay, let's dive straight into the agenda. We're covering 5 key areas today. First, AI as a new organizational layer. Second, the pitfall of human hollowing. Third, algorithmic psychological safety. Fourth, continuity and AI-RTO. And finally, governance and human capital.
Let's get into part 1. AI as a new organizational layer. We are moving from tool to architect.
We really need to unlearn this idea of AI as just a standalone assistant. It is now a structure woven completely through our work. The sunny side up metaphor perfectly captures this. Imagine an egg yolk. That's the AI. And it doesn't just sit neatly on top of a desk. It seeps into every single layer. It integrates into people and culture. It redefines our processes and roles. It navigates data and systems, and it hits right at the core of governance and responsibility. AI is acting as the architect inside the workflow, not just some assistant sitting on the sidelines waiting for instructions.
And you know, this didn't just happen overnight. We started with the basic chatbot, basically a glorified question and answer machine, right? Then we moved to the Copilot, which proactively supported us. But now we're entering the era of Agentic AI. These AI agents don't just do single isolated tasks. They form agent teams that organize entire dynamic processes. They actually coordinate workflows with each other, with barely any human intervention. And honestly, that forces us to look at the very nature of our own work in a fundamentally different way.
Which brings us to part 2, the pitfall of human hollowing, and the very real risk of losing our craftsmanship.
So if AI is taking over all these tasks, we really need to talk about the human impact, because that shiny promise of more productivity is hiding a massive strategic risk. The old promise of automation was super straightforward: eliminate the boring work, get faster, become cheaper. Simple. But the new risk is what's being called human hollowing. If we just hand over all the routine, entry-level tasks to AI, we accidentally destroy the practice space for our junior employees. That grunt work is exactly how beginners put in the reps to understand complex stuff. If we erase that learning path, how on earth are we going to train the senior experts of tomorrow?
Just think about this for a second. AI doesn't just take over work, it can also hollow out the route to craftsmanship. That is the core issue here. It's no longer just about what jobs will disappear. The real question is, how do we protect the development of expertise? If the AI is doing all the heavy lifting during those crucial first years of a career, young professionals are missing out on building essential experience. We literally have to carve out intentional space in our organizations just to preserve that human craftsmanship.
This ties perfectly into the AI barbell framework. Picture a weightlifting barbell, heavy weights on both ends, thin bar in the middle. That is exactly what's happening to the workforce right now. The bottom tier of really complex physical work, that stays. The absolute top tier of strategic leadership, that stays too. But that massive middle layer of routine knowledge work is just getting completely squeezed out by AI. So it's become an absolute strategic necessity to consciously move our human talent to areas where they can truly add distinct human value.
All right, part 3, algorithmic psychological safety.
So how does this actually play out day to day? When systems start organizing the work, the way we collaborate totally changes. Enter algorithmic psychological safety. This is the space and security for employees to actually question, correct, or completely ignore AI outputs. We usually think of psychological safety as being about people, like, do you dare to contradict your boss? But in an AI-driven company, that dynamic shifts. Do your people feel safe and supported enough to look at an algorithm, trust their own professional intuition, and say, nope, the machine is wrong?
The reality is, the very definition of a professional is shifting. Your value isn't about building everything from scratch anymore. It's all about your professional judgment. You have to be able to validate what the AI spits out. You need to spot those sneaky ghost references and AI hallucinations. You know, that incredibly convincing nonsense the AI sometimes makes up. Real AI literacy is way more than just typing a clever prompt. It demands a massive upgrade in critical thinking. You're no longer just the producer. You are essentially the final editor for an incredibly fast, but definitely fallible digital colleague.
Moving on to part 4, continuity in AI-RTO. Let's look at the strategic risks.
We spend so much time obsessing over what AI gives us, the profit, the speed,
But what happens if someone pulls the plug? That brings us to AI-RTO. RTO, or Recovery Time Objective, is a classic IT metric. It basically asks, how long can a system be down before the company is in serious trouble? Applying this to AI shows just how deeply anchored this tech already is. The question is brutally simple, but so important. If your AI goes offline today, how long can your organization actually function? Could your teams even execute their primary processes manually anymore?
And that kind of dependency creates vulnerabilities that go way beyond a simple server outage. We're talking about the failure of critical systems, sure, but also huge geopolitical restrictions. Think about export controls. Access to the best AI models isn't a guarantee. It can be shut down by a political or economic decision overnight. Even national defense memos are explicitly linking AI to strategic autonomy now. If you're using AI seriously, you are building a massive dependency, and you absolutely need a rock-solid continuity plan in place.
Finally, Part 5, Governance and Human Capital. The experimental phase? Yeah, that's over. The consequences for our work are incredibly real now, which means they have to be governed. Thinking back to our sunny-side-up egg layers, every single one needs direction. For people and culture, governance means building a safe architecture where people can actually learn how to work alongside AI. For processes and roles, management has to keep a tight grip on workflows that are now running semi-autonomously by AI agents. In data and systems, you need strict validation and source control. And the governance layer itself? That's about hard executive responsibility. When an agentic AI makes a $1 million mistake, who's liable? You definitely can't blame the intern for that one.
We really have to ditch this outdated idea of tech implementation. We need to move away from simple AI adoption, which basically just means buying a software license and handing out tools, to building a true learning architecture. As a company, you must organize learning around these new systems in a safe, visible, and structured way. If you don't, you end up with shadow AI, completely uncontrolled outputs, and you end up losing the exact control you were trying so hard to keep.
All of this brings the different threads from Sheeper's newsletter together so beautifully. We've looked at the AI barbell, the risks of human hollowing, and why we desperately need algorithmic psychological safety. Together, they give us a framework to navigate this crazy new reality. And it all leads to one final provocative question. How do we organize human capability in an era where AI organizes itself? Honestly, that is the single most important strategic question for the next decade. AI isn't just replacing work. It's forcing us to totally redesign what human work and human responsibility even mean. Take that thought back to your own teams. Thanks so much for tuning in to this explainer, and we'll see you next time.